All right, I've got it, 7 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. We'll call to order the Council Committee meeting, October 16th, 2018. First item on the agenda this evening is the Sunset Avenue speed bumps request. This is under Public Works.
Let me turn that on. I don't want to make a rookie mistake. So anyway, one of the things we've talked about in the past, and this has kind of been our practice in the city, is the speed bumps. When we look at that, we look at the pros and cons on those. And Mr. Milliken's going to have a little discussion after this also, but just to let you realize that they are easy to put in. They are a deterrent for speed. However, they do not reduce the speed as much as people think they would. Some of the cons I think that are very important to realize with these speed bumps is that you need, number one, to have a consensus with that neighborhood, and you want to have a large consensus, or you're going to be taking them out in about 2 years, that we found also with some of the studies. But it can cause problems for your emergency vehicles. It can cause damage to your city vehicles, your plow trucks, your things like that. It can also cause problems for people with back injuries, motorcycles. There is maintenance and upkeep to maintain these too that can cause a lot of problems. So as you can see from the pros and cons, you have a lot of cons on not doing these. It doesn't allow us to plow as effectively the streets, so that's another important thing too. And that, like I said, the potential personal injury there is a kind of problem. And people find a way around these. So if you put them in an area that there's a way to get around, they're going to go around. You're just going to divert the traffic to other areas. So that's just kind of the history and why we don't have these in the city, or a lot of areas that we see them, but I think it's important to kind of put that out there. Ed, anything you'd like to add?
I really have nothing to add there. I think Ms. Cahill touched on everything quite well, and that's our stance on it. Speed bumps,
Okay. I think that's an excellent evaluation that was prepared, and I guess I always knew there was a difference between a speed bump and a speed hump, but never really thought about the difference, so thank you. I mean, to me, it seems like the consensus from council would be to not begin to put them in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, this is our history. These are the pros and cons. If you look at this, there are a lot of issues and concerns with these when you put them in, and it's not just it doesn't get the effect that you have, that you want. I think our practice of using the what do we call that, Matt? The stealth radar to get the collection to actually find out what the speed is on the streets and number of cars that are going helps us determine also patrols and things like that. And I think the police would agree with that. That's a bigger deterrent for stopping a lot of that when we look at those things. So, I mean, I don't know if there's any other feedback from council, but I mean, I'm just trying to give the history and my opinion on why we've looked at these in the past and we've kind of said, hey, this isn't a good idea.
I did see that the radar was up last week and over the weekend. So is there a consensus from the committee? Mr. Skidmore, are you also in agreement with Mr. Cahill? Okay. Any other comments from any other council members? All right. All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to the waste collection contract. This is labeled under administration.
So as June 30th, 2019, we have the option to renew our contract with Republic Services for waste collection, or we can choose to rebid the contract. So I have for you up here what the current fees are for solid waste collection and recyclable collection. And then I also have what the fees would be if we were to extend the contract for another 2 years. So for solid waste collection, if we were to renew it for 2 years, there would be an increase of $5.88 per year, or 12 cents per pickup. And then for recycling, it would be an increase of $3 per year, or 6 cents per pickup. Does anybody have a question on this slide? Okay. And then we also do have the option to renew the contract 3 times. That includes this upcoming year. Some of the highlights that we have in this contract that a lot of other cities do not have is that we do have large item pickup. So on your regular scheduled trash collection days, if you have a large item that's setting out, there is another truck that goes by later that will pick that large item up for you. Also, we have where they will also collect from your personal garbage cans. There are some contracts out there where they will only collect if you use the tote that that company provides to you. But Republic Services, they will collect from your personal garbage cans, and also if you just set it out in an enclosed bag. But one of the problems that they do have, since they've gone to like the top loaders, is that if you do use your personal garbage can, the claws kind of act like a belt around the middle of it, so sometimes all the trash doesn't get emptied out. So they, in the beginning, they did offer just one of their totes to you free of charge, but what they started doing was offering 2 free of charge, so that maybe to encourage people to use their totes so that all the garbage would be emptied out of the cans. Another thing that we had put in our contract that we were getting a lot of calls, a lot of complaints with our previous one, that they would be picking up trash on school routes and it would back traffic up, and it was a safety concern. So we did have that added into the contract. And some other things that we worked on was driver communication. So their drivers are supposed to call in every day to see if we've had any concerns called in by our residents. For some reason, if they don't pick up your trash, they're supposed to leave a tag behind explaining why it wasn't collected. And also, if there's any construction on streets, or if there's any road closures, they're supposed to contact our Public Works Department so that they can work together on making sure that the trash gets collected. And then finally, there is no fuel surcharge on that contract.
Mr. Cahill has a question.
So Sherry, with this also, with the trash cans, the smaller trash cans, are those still available as an option instead of the 95-gallon totes
Yes.
as an option? Okay.
So we had with our communities that have homeowners associations that have to put their totes in their garages. The big totes did not fit in there, so they do have an option for the smaller totes. And also, some of our residents, if they weren't able to manipulate or take their larger totes out, you could get a smaller tote instead. Another thing is community involvement, and I'm not sure other companies might do this also, but Republic Services, they've sponsored our movie nights for the past 2 years. They provide cardboard trash cans for city events, and they have also participated in our Touch a Truck program. But we have had some concerns, and that's one of the reasons, another reason I wanted to bring it up. So before we actually even put this stuff in a contract, Republic Services came to us and said, hey, we can do these additional things. So we had it put in our contract, but lately it's not been followed like it should be. So one of the things is large items are not always being collected. So it's in the contract, they said they would do it, but we have been getting calls from residents where they put large items out and they just never would pick them up. So we have to then contact Republic Services to get them to go back out there. Also, they said that they would provide the second tote free of charge, but what we're finding out that when residents are calling and asking for a second tote, customer service is charging them for that second tote instead of giving it to them for free. Drivers, they're calling in too early. They call every day, but what they're doing is they're calling in too early, and so to get reports to find out if there's any complaints. So it's not always accurate what we're giving them. And then they've not been leaving tags behind to explain why they're not picking up the trash. And we've really been working with them on this, but they've said that for like the past year that they're in order. So at this point, I'm thinking they're not going to order them. Personal totes are not being emptied. They're just leaving them there because they don't want to use the personal tote. They don't want to empty the personal totes, and they're not been collecting the Tide bags. There's been instances where there has been some construction on the streets where they've decided not to pick up the trash that day and they did not contact Public Works. And then if there is an issue, they're waiting until the end of the day to contact us and tell us that there's an issue. So at that point, we can't get it resolved that day. They'll call like at 4:45, so it's too late to get it resolved that day. We have to wait and get it resolved the next day. So we've been monitoring the complaints that from 2017 and those that we received from our residents in 2018. So the dark blue are complaints that we received in 2017 and the lighter blue is 2018. And you can see in January, February, and March of 2017, we didn't receive any complaints from our residents. And then the rest of the time through to September, there wasn't that many. But as you can see in 2018, we've had a lot more complaints this year. Some other concerns that we've been having is we've been having some issues with the management of Republic Services. In November of 2017, they announced that their longtime municipal rep, their route supervisor, and customer service manager were no longer with the company. And the communication of the change in this was very poor. We didn't find out about it until much later. Customer service is no longer local, and the agents in customer service are not familiar with our contracts, so they give out inaccurate information to our residents. We've had a lot of issues with the most recent route supervisor that's been assigned to Erlanger. And then the new municipal rep that they hired last fall gave his notice in August, and they have not replaced him yet. Nor if they did replace him, they've not given us notice of who that is. So for direction in 2019, I guess what the city needs to decide what they want to do is, do we want to renew the contract or go back out to bid? We have a really good contract. It's a really good contract. We have great fee amounts. If we go back out to bid, I'm not sure that we'll get such a good contract. However, they don't have very good management right now at Republic Services, and the service has been very inconsistent. So if we choose to go back out to bid, either way, we have to give a 30-day written notice to Republic Services. So it's 30 days before June 30th. And then also the bid process takes a while, so that's why I wanted to bring it up tonight. And just so you know the bid timeline. So in January is really when we need to start getting our bid packets together. In February is when we need to advertise it, and then Kentucky Enquirer. March, we would need to have our bid opening. And then April, we'd have to have our public hearing to discuss the bids that were received. And then May was when we would need to have the bid awarded. And then in June, then that's when the new provider would then need to notify all of our residents what, what their process is, what they're doing. And then we'd have to do the collection of totes by the current provider and the delivery of totes by the new provider. And then the new contract would begin on July 1st. So I guess what I'm asking everyone is if you want to go back out to bid or if you just want to renew the contract for an additional 2 years.
Mrs. Pitts?
First of all, that's a shame, and I was going to ask you before you got into that if the management changed, because it's so different this year from in the past.
Yes.
They've been really good, and that really stinks that happened. If we put it out to bid and we include them in our bid, will they bid higher than what this is, that we currently have?
The last time we did that, they did bid higher.
Okay.
We had them once before, and then we went back out to bid, and then when they rebid, it was higher than what it would have been if we renewed it for 2 years.
Okay, thanks.
I think, Mr. Nicely?
I think we've been getting good service out of these people. There's no complaint with me, and I have heard no one from our tenants complain. And I make a motion, we go for it, keep them.
Well, we're not going to vote on anything tonight, but I have been hearing, as well, and I think I've been kind of relaying that to Matt or Sherry, which is how they're getting some of this data. But, I mean, you've seen the numbers. I mean, there have been complaints. I saw another hand up over here, Mrs. Sedkamp.
Yeah, I'm with Corinne. I find this to be such a darn shame because they do an exemplary job as far as I'm concerned. And the garbage men are just delightful people. And that's huge. And that's big in the city, you know, especially with all the elderly people that we have, myself included. I'm shocked that there's not a representative here.
I don't know if we had alerted them that we would be speaking about it.
I was just
necessarily.
bringing it to your all's attention that this was
Oh.
coming up.
Oh, I'd like to hear from them and, you know, point face to face and, but I'm with Mr. Nicely. I've been very happy with their service. And I'm very concerned about how much more expensive it would be if we went with another one. So if there's any way that we can, you know, fix this management issue that they have, you know, I think we should stay with them.
I think an important factor to this is if we had the data on what other cities are paying. You know,
Yeah,
if
that's a
we're
good
paying
idea.
the least of any of the surrounding cities, then maybe
Well,
it would make it easier to decide to stick with it.
A
But
lot of
if-
other cities just rebid recently, and we know our contract is better than theirs. Even Republic was surprised when we got the new manager last year that our contract was so good compared to others in Republic. So, you know, this is something that Sherry and I have been kind of talking about. We do see a lot more, or I guess an increase of complaints. But, you know, Sherry and I also just discussed that, I guess if you look at the whole population of Erlanger, it's probably still very small. But we wanted to at least bring it to council's attention, just so you guys are aware. You know, if we would renew the contract with Republic, we can always ensure that there is a clause that if the management issue continues, that we can, you know, pull out after a 6-month notice or something like that. So, I mean, we can always put in more options. We just kind of wanted to get council's feedback before we get to a point where we have to make a decision right now.
I saw Mrs. Kyle first, and then I see Mrs. Pitts as well.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. My husband is very difficult to please, and he loves them. We did call and ask for an extra tote. I was not given an additional charge. And whenever we have something large, we always call the office and tell them. And she says, oh, thank you so much for calling. We'll make sure that we get someone out there. So I think if you would give them a call if you have something large. And another thing that I've noticed too is like when you do yard work, when you package that in your tote, make sure you bundle it up so that when they do pick it up, it stays together so that when they lift it, it's not going to go all different directions. There's an art to that, but I mean, you have to be considerate of them, but they are delightful. And they're very, they do a very good job on our streets, so I was shocked to hear about all the complaints, because and they always call us to remind us when there's a holiday, that there'll be a day later.
Yeah, that's
and
another really nice thing.
yeah, so I really like them, but that's just my.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Pitts?
I've had a lot of residents tell me they like them also. I've not personally had any complaints about them. Is there, I don't know when we have to make the decision about bids, but is there a way at our next committee meeting that a representative can talk to us and explain the issues and see if they can resolve them so we can keep them? Do you think that would be a
I think
possibility?
it's a good idea.
Okay,
And
They
it
don't-
seems to me like we would have some time if we
yes.
discussed it next month.
okay, thank you.
They don't have a municipal rep that I know of, but we can call. There's another person I can call and see if they can get someone out here to address everyone.
So I think our next committee meeting is actually December. Is that right?
Yeah, it is.
Because next month we'll be having our regular meeting in place of our committee meeting. Is that right? Yeah. Mrs. Skidmore?
Sherry, were the problem areas, was there one area that just stood out that had the most problems? Is it like driver-related, or
No.
it was just kind of all over
Yeah.
random? Okay.
But to everyone's point too, we don't get a lot of compliments. You know, we're only getting the complaints, so.
That's true.
It's just another reason we kind of bring it out to everywhere. We've had a lot of meetings with Republic Services over the last year, during their management, because we finally kind of had enough, and they did fix some things, and then it started kind of getting away, and they started fixing again. So it's just heavily on the management issues there, I think. So we'll have to, we can probably monitor it before December, and then we can have them come out and talk too, because that's the time we're going to need to make a decision anyway if we go out to bid, that time frame.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, sounds like we've got some good direction there. Thank you. Next, we've got the pet hotel zone change request. Mr. Hahn?
Yes, thank you. We've had a request to amend our zoning, to do a text amendment for the neighborhood commercial zone to add what we define as pet hotels as a permitted use in the neighborhood commercial zone. Dogtopia is the company who has requested this. They're looking to locate at 3156 Dixie Highway, which is where Kroger's is, Kroger Shopping Center up there. Currently, pet hotels are permitted in the IP1 zone as a conditionally permitted use, and in the IP2 zone as a permitted use. Mr. Carter is here with Dogtopia to talk to you. I sent you a copy of their brochure that they sent, and he may have some other copies for you. My understanding is he is the owner of the ones that are currently in Lexington and Louisville, and I guess he's looking to expand here in northern Kentucky. Their business plan, if you go through that plan, appears to be that they want to locate in the shopping center kind of areas, and they're a national company. So Mr. Carter's here if you would like to hear from him. But it would require a text amendment, which you would then, at the next council meeting, direct me to go down and file an application for a text amendment to add pet hotels as a permitted use within the neighborhood commercial zone, if that is the direction you want to head. Yes, ma'am.
Where are our other neighborhood commercial areas? I mean, I know a few, but I'm
Neighborhood
just,
commercial is pretty much along Dixie Highway.
okay, so all those little
Everything along
areas.
Dixie Highway is a neighborhood commercial.
Okay, and the other
the most
question I
part.
was going to ask, I know we have 2 pet motels or whatever in this area. Are those overburdened right now, or do you know how they're doing?
I cannot answer that.
Okay,
I can't either, no.
yeah, I'm just curious, because
Yeah.
I know it's a growing industry. Yes, okay, thank you.
Mrs. Pitts?
If we change this, does it open it up to anything else that people might not want in those areas, if that particular zoning change?
Well, it would allow anywhere in the neighborhood commercial zone to have a pet hotel where anything that's zoned neighborhood commercial.
Mrs. Fetty?
Do you just want to go ahead and do your presentation, and then we can ask questions if that
Okay.
makes it easier for
Yeah.
everybody?
Can I move it? How do we do this? Next slide.
Look to me and I'll.
Okay, yeah, we're good for the next slide. So my name is Ben Carter. I'm the owner of Dogtopia. My business partner right there is Mike Browning. So we own Dogtopia in Louisville, Kentucky, which is on South Hurstbourne, which is kind of a busy artery of Louisville, Kentucky. And we own one in Lexington that's directly next door to Fayette Mall, if any of you are familiar with Lexington. So it's directly next door to a car dealership, a nice Acura dealership. So it's similar points of presence within Louisville and Lexington. So we're hoping to do the same thing, and would like consideration for a conditional use permit within the neighborhood commercial zone. So we understand that if we open the doors to everyone that would want to put these anywhere that's zoned for neighborhood commercial, that might be somewhat unreasonable. So we were just hoping to add the language to allow us to have a conditional use permit for neighborhood commercial. So first presentation slide here, that is one of the more recent Dogtopias. So it's not kind of what traditionally we would think of as a kennel, if you will. So we try to separate ourselves from that stigma. And we're mainly a dog daycare. So when I say that, pet parents, they'll bring them in the morning, they'll pick them up in the afternoon. They do so because they don't want to keep them in a crate all day long. They know how important socialization is to pups. So it's becoming more of a prevalent, like you mentioned earlier, Vicki, it's becoming more of a popular and growing industry. You have pet suites here. You have the Erlanger Pet Hospital, Pet Resort that's right down the street from us as well. I visited both those locations. It looks like Pet Suites has been open for 15 or so years, has a whole lot of dogs. So I think the demand is there, and I think we're somewhat different than what we currently have in Erlanger. So if you'll go to the next slide for me. So this was a question by Jessica over there, which of these store models are we going to do? We would be doing the suburban retail, similar to what we have in Lexington and Louisville. So Lexington and Louisville, we have 6,000 square feet. The Silver Lake Shopping Center, there's slightly under 6,000 square feet. It used to be a Blockbuster. So what our hope would be too is to help revive the shopping center. So you've got an old shopping center, you've got 6,000 square feet right next to Kroger that's been vacant for however long the Blockbuster's been gone, and you've got some other vacancies as well. So hopefully we could come and we could help you guys revive the shopping center, bring a lot of traffic that comes twice a day and has disposable income, so hopefully we'll attract other businesses to that area as well. So we do a lot of things to help with odor control and noise control. Obviously no one wants a bunch of barking dogs all around them and get complaints from neighbors. I will say that at both of our Lexington and our Louisville location, we have yet to hear one complaint. We have a Which Wich store next to us. I just referenced the Courtesy Acura dealership next to us in Lexington. So Which Wich is directly next door to us in Louisville, Kentucky, and literally every time I go there, I go to Which Wich for lunch, and I have yet to hear a barking dog. So we do a really good job with isolating the sound control. We do request to have an outdoor area, however, it's limited time when the dogs go out there. If you'll go to the next slide for me. So that's kind of a look and feel about the way they look on the inside. So it's kind of putting a retail spin on it, if you will, for a dog daycare. And we use the word kennel because we overnight board dogs overnight. We hate the word kennel, though, because we don't want to be associated with kind of the old rundown dog kennel. So we look at ourselves as kind of the nicer, cleaner, updated version of dog kennels and dog daycare. We'll go to the next one. So some of the demographic requirements, most important there is just 100,000 residents within a 5-mile radius. Last I looked, I think there's about 140 within a 5-mile radius to this location. We want highly trafficked strip centers. A lot of our clientele are female millennials, so it's a demographic that a lot of retailers are going after right now, and overwhelming majority of them have discretionary income and disposable income. Obviously, you're not going to be using a service like Dogtopia where you pay $30 or so for daycare if you don't have some money to spend. So hopefully we bring some of that clientele down from the Crestview Hills, bring them into Erlanger, into that shopping center, and help get it back to where it needs to be. If you'll go to the next one. So that kind of goes over what we do. We practice really the highest standards of safety. It's a proven business model. There's about 77 open right now, and probably within the next 2 years, you're looking at about 150 nationwide. A lot of them going into similar type retail shopping centers. So that's kind of what's setting us apart from the traditional kennel that might be in an industrial part of town. So everyone knows everyone loves dogs, especially millennials. So a lot of millennials are actually putting off having children, and now they get dogs, what they call their fur babies. So they're spending the money on their pups, their doodles of the world. If you've seen how many doodles we have in Lexington, you would be amazed. And it's probably similar here. So they buy these nice dogs with good pedigrees, and they want to spend money on them. So we're hoping to help them do that. We'll go to the next one. That's a picture of our outdoor area. So you can see it's an 8-foot tall fence, so we're not going to have dogs jumping over it and go wandering around the neighborhood. That's canine grass, so we use some sanitation cleaning protocols to make sure that that's not stinking. The good thing about the Silver Lake Shopping Center, and one of the reasons we wanted to go for a conditional use permit as opposed to just making it a permitted use, is because we realize that a lot of these neighborhood commercial zone properties are near residential neighborhoods. Luckily, the Silver Lake Shopping Center is not, so that wouldn't be a concern for us. So just to let you know our line of thought behind that process. Next area, and that's a Louisville as well, the outdoor, so just kind of like what it looks like from the outdoor. That's the front of Lexington. So if you're looking at Lexington right here, here's the car lot. So we have yet to hear one complaint, like I said, on any barking dogs. So you have people trying to sell Acura cars all day long next to us, and we have dogs out throughout the day and have yet to receive one complaint. So, and then the next one, and that's the front of the Louisville location. So you can see we've got the graphics on the windows. We try to keep it as nice and fresh looking as possible. So trying to change the stigma between the four dog kennels and change it into more of a upscale type event place like this that can attract the young demographics that have money to spend. But I think if you would allow us to have that consideration for the conditional use permit, that we could really help that shopping center. But I'll open it up to any questions anyone might have.
My daughter has a doodle.
Yes, there you go. They love everyone loves their doodles.
You know, there's no doubt whatsoever that the shopping center needs some revitalization. And I have 2 kids that are millennials, and I know how busy they are, and they like one-stop shop places. They could, you know, they could go, you know, drop the dog off, go to the grocery, come back, pick up the dog, go home. You know, I mean, I can really see that it would be very, very popular. I think it would be extremely popular.
Yeah, we think so. And like you said, we truly think it would help the shopping center.
Yeah, I do too.
Regardless of what happens with Kroger in 3 or 4 years, you know, that'll allow us time to get established. And then hopefully, if Kroger were to leave and go across the street, then hopefully that we would help attract a nice tenant to take their location.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a question for Dave. So can we do a conditional use or?
Certainly.
Okay, that's fine.
You could amend it and make it a conditionally permitted use, means they'd have one other step. They'd have to go through the Board of Adjustments to get their conditional use permit.
Mrs. Skidmore?
Are these franchises then?
It is a franchise, yes, ma'am. It was originally out of Virginia. Now the headquarters is out of Arizona, Phoenix.
Okay, so if it's like, okay, I'm just saying McDonald's is a franchise. Some of your franchise, like some of the McDonald's are better than other McDonald's. So do you have anything in place to keep all of your franchises top notch?
Well, that would be a question for the franchisor. I can tell you that they're bringing on some impressive franchisees. So it's a good line of people they're bringing on, and the look and feel of it, I think the corporate model, they're doing a really good job of just making it look clean and fresh. Now, obviously, any franchise, you know, the success of that franchise is the franchisees that actually operate the businesses. And I can tell you that the ones we operate and the ones that we would operate here would be well run. Well, luckily, as I mentioned earlier, it's not near residential. So the neighbors, Kroger, I don't think has put up a fuss about it. You know, the good thing about our business is we attract people that come twice a day, so morning, evening. They have discretionary income. Usually they're coming out after work, so if you have a Kroger or something else nearby and they need to stop for bread or whatever the case is, they're going to most likely be using that Kroger along the way. So we like to think that we bring nice clientele to whatever shopping center we go to, honestly.
And you were thinking that the fenced-in area would go in the back?
Yeah, it would go in the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? And so is it the consensus of council to give Mr. Hahn the approval to make a text amendment to make it a conditional use? Yes, Mrs. Kyle?
That's what I was going to say. As long as it's a conditional use, that would keep them out of the other shopping centers,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be perfect.
Did you have something to say about that?
No, we'll just have that resolution at the next council meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. And I'll leave this with you.
Okay, great. All right, then next we have the tattoo parlor or tattoo studio zone change request. Mr. Hahn?
Yes, thank you. This is a request to have a tattoo parlor at 3924 Dixie Highway in the area right where the other one was that has since moved out. This also is in the neighborhood commercial zone. Just a little history. I'll give you the history on how that, where it was and how we got to where we are today. I don't know if any of you would remember, but in 1994, someone applied for a permit to put a tattoo parlor at that location, at this location. I said no because we didn't have that zone did not list as a permitted use tattoo parlors. So after I said that, two things happened. One, the owner filed suit against the city, and also due to us not having any zone that permitted tattoo parlors. And secondly, they filed an application with the Board of Adjustments to amend, to review my interpretation, and the board overruled my decision to not allow the tattoo parlor, saying that they were due to what is the use that it was, professional teaching or work of the fine arts or anything like that. So the board ruled that that's the thing that they fit under. Then as a follow-up to that lawsuit, then the city then, at pretty close about the same time, filed an application with the Planning Commission to add tattoo so we could have a use that permitted, or a zone that permitted tattoo parlors, and that is in the BP1 zone, out by the interstate. So that is where the zone was permitted. So then therefore, after the city then did that, from the zoning administrator's standpoint, we considered the tattoo parlor that was permitted to go in through the Board of Adjustment as a legal non-conforming use, since the city amended the text to allow them to go, gave them basically a zone where they could go, and the one that the board said was okay was considered a legal non-conforming use. So that is the premise that we have been working on forever. So then these folks, the Wicked Dragon, came forward and would like to operate their facility out of there. So that would then, with Mark's decision that of what I just stated, that it would not be permitted, they would need to have a text amendment to add the use of tattoos either as a permitted use or a conditionally permitted use to operate from that facility. So that's was the history on how we got to where we are on that. I know that was a little confusing, and if anybody needs further clarification, let me know. Then after we were talking with, I talked with Jack about that somewhat, and Jack had some other thoughts that he may want to elaborate on.
I feel like I'm being set up here. Let's first just maybe let the business owners sort of speak as to what their concept is, and then I can kind of clean up at the end. Because I do think it's, from a planning and zoning perspective, it is a unique set of facts. There's no doubt about that.
I agree.
Hi, well, my name is Dave Potvin. I am an Erlanger resident. I am, a little nervous here, sorry. But I'm not used to doing this every day, but I'm an Erlanger.
You're among friends, dear.
Thank you. So, but I am an Erlanger resident. I've been in Erlanger for about 5 years now. I'm also partnering with Gabe here. Gabe is the owner of Red Dragon Tattoo up on Coleraine. We would like to put a tattoo parlor up on Dixie Highway. We know one's been there before, but we're going to bring something that's up class and suitable to where when you walk down the street and you look in our windows, you're going to see something that's professionalism, up class, and something you're going to say, that looks really nice. That's what we need in our.
Like you said, I'm Gabriel Lowe, owner of Red Dragon. We have our families here. This is Dave's family, my wife's Linya. This feels a little bit like deja vu. I did this at Coleraine 9 years ago, and they did change the zoning for us. So I built Red Dragon Tattoo. That was 9 years ago. I wanted a business a tattoo shop that was comfortable to all. Through my 20s, I was a residential architect, and I went into a local tattoo shop, and to be totally blunt, I felt a little uncomfortable. So I always had the dream to have a tattoo shop that professionals could go, that anybody could go and feel comfortable. And made that dream come true in 2010. And if one step into my shop, you'd see that it's professional, that it's a really, really nice shop. We're doing very well and wanted to reach out. Dave is actually one of my artists. I have 6 artists now. Dave and his professionalism and how he carries himself, it was just a no-brainer to have him as a business partner, especially because he's an Erlanger resident. We found the place that another tattoo shop was in for years, and they were successful. I thought it, once again, was a no-brainer to go in there and build upon what they did. And I really think that we could have an amazing business tattoo shop there. So is there any questions that you have for us?
Mrs. Sutkin?
Well, I'm old school. You know, I think it's time that this cloud that hangs over artistry is lifted.
Thank you so much.
I really believe that. It's not my bag. I about killed my daughter when she got one. It's the new age. And I'm really kind of a little concerned for you all, because Mothers is doing so well and they're going to be so close to you. But that's none of my business. I just can't imagine that demand would be that significant that you all could really
They're a
soar.
great business. and
Oh, they are. We have
really
never had, that, in my knowledge, one complaint. And that is one of the nicest men that I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, in Coleraine, when we moved in there was 3 other tattoo shops there. There was one that was very similar to Mother's, and they really carried themselves well. And then there was 2 lesser places, and both of those places shut down quickly after we moved in. So here we are 9 years later, us and then another shop that holds himself in high regards. They're definitely, they still stand. So we're not scared of Mother's. We have 6 artists, and we really, I think we'll be okay.
Well, I personally admire ink, but I will kill any one of my grandchildren I find in your business.
I can tell you, the clientele that I tattoo on is from, that come over to the Coleraine Avenue where I'm at right now, is from this area. So some are from Erlanger, some are from Dry Ridge, Pendleton County, Campbell County. So they're coming from Kentucky to Cincinnati to get tattooed by me. I tattoo a lot of police officers. I've tattooed Hamilton County corrections officers. I got several of them that come, 2 or 3. Yes. And what we do, we do a lot of scar cover-ups. We tattoo and hide varicose veins. What we do is more than just an art. We help men and women actually feel better about themselves. We tattoo a lot of we tattoo names of ones that's passed away. So, a lot of what we do is more than just the art. We're actually helping people feel better about themselves.
My wife's Linya, she just recently went to school for permanent makeup. So she learned all about covering up scars and all kinds of different things.
You're just gonna say
About how many people a day would be going in and out?
It depends on the day. As far as on a Saturday, we will tattoo 15 to 20 different tattoos, and so that's a busier day. I would probably say during the week it'll be a lot less. Probably maybe 5 to 10 tattoos a day, and they might bring somebody with them. There might be additional piercings.
So it's relatively not a real
It's not really that
busy
much.
place, yeah.
It's usually appointment only as well, so it's not like there's a lot of foot traffic.
I'm like Patty, I don't have any, and I about killed my son when he got his first one. But then on number 6 or 8, I start getting used to it,
Right. And in an argument that I read not too long ago, which was kind of interesting, New York, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but they were actually outlawed. Tattoos were outlawed all the way till '97. So
Wow.
very, very, very long time. But it didn't stop tattooing. Tattooing went just underground all those years. So it's sad to say, but there's probably tattoos going on in Erlinger basements right now. So I know it's gross. So we're just trying to legitimize everything and try to have a nice, clean place where people could go.
Could you guys just stick around at the end of the meeting, or
Absolutely.
just, there's a couple procedural things that Dave and I kind of want to talk to you about, and maybe some
Absolutely.
opportunities you might have, okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I wanted to know what part of Coleraine they're on.
It's up towards the mall.
Up toward Northgate?
Yeah,
Okay.
right down for just probably a quarter mile down from Northgate Mall. But yeah, we try to be an asset to the community as much as possible. We've had like military appreciation days where all the proceeds will go to like a military family.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we've tried to do different things. A couple Christmases ago, we basically did 20% off a tattoo if they brought in a wrapped present. And then we put a Christmas tree in the lobby. By Christmas, we had like 150 different toys in our lobby, and then we donated those toys to. That's the Erlang. Yeah, absolutely.
Our last minute thing for the military is we did the proceeds went to the police office.
Are there any other questions, comments? All right, we'll move on. Next, we've got some personnel issues regarding the police. Chief? Chief, do you have any tattoos?
I do.
Okay.
And actually, I have someone in here that tattooed my first one. Yeah, so, my friend. Before I get started with presentation, I just want to say that I understand that what we're going to present to you tonight is not normal procedure coming here in October, November, in the middle of the budget year. But as we've found, we can't plan for everything, and things come up, some good things, and it just brings us to this point where we felt we needed to address this tonight. So last year, December 1st, you guys swore me in, and I sat here, and I told you my goals and visions for the Erlanger Police Department. And if you remember correctly, one of my major goals was we were going to be more involved in this community. Well, we also knew that we were going to lose Crescent Springs last year. So we had already created community resource officer position. Sergeant Rice had taken over right before December. And he has done an outstanding job of setting up events and attending events and group meetings. But one of the first things we did is when we knew we were going to lose Crescent Springs, we had several people that were going to retire coming up, one of them being Lieutenant Jansen. So the first thing we did is we voluntarily decided that we were going to get rid of the lieutenant position, not fill it, and move it down to a patrol position, because that's where we feel we're getting the most. Let the guys do all the work. You know, they're the ones out there taking the calls, and we need as many of them out there as we can get. Then in the middle of February, the police social worker idea kind of came up and really took off, and we all sat here and said, man, this is a good idea, great benefit for our citizens. And it has worked out really well. Becky's doing a great job. Coffee of the Cop, every month since March, we've been meeting with community people. We just had our last one Saturday where we raised $200 for Chicks and Chucks. And a lot of you attend that. And we've had great success, met a lot of good citizens, and building that relationship. Our military liaison group is every officer that's a veteran now wears their service pin on their uniform. It has become a great icebreaker when they're on calls and they're with a vet that's got PTSD. When they see those Army, Coast Guard, Navy, Marines, Air Force, it really eases them up. They know who they're talking to and they can let go. So that's been a really success. Fill a cruiser. You know, we filled 4 cruisers for our schools. Huge success. Child IDs is one of the things we brought back, Sergeant Rice did, so we're doing those again at different events. And then attending meetings with Crime Stoppers, Alliance, and those things. All these things were on our goals list last year, except for the social worker. So we have met all those goals. ECAT, our community anti-crime team, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, so I'll pass on that for just a second. One of our other goals was keeping at the forefront of technology, being innovative. We're still working on body cameras. We had budgeted that last year, but we just weren't satisfied with what we were looking at, so we extended it until we get what we want. Power DMS is our new policy accreditation and actually used throughout the city in every department. Our department is leading that, getting it set up. We're way ahead of the ballgame on this, thanks to Officer Eagler.
Does everybody know what Power DMS is?
It's training module, policy module. So if you have a policy change, right now we have to do it roll call, we have to sign off on sheets, and then you got to keep those sheets. And it's kind of cumbersome at the end of the year trying to figure out who's all signed in, who hasn't. With Power DMS, we don't have to do roll call. We can send it right to a guy that can look at their phone, their tablet, their computer. They can read it, take the test, or whatever we choose to put in there, a test, a video. We can make them watch the whole video, and then they can digitally sign. So then when you come to us or someone comes and says, Officer so-and-so, how much training have they done this year? With a couple clicks, we can pull up their training. It sends alerts if they're not following through and stuff. So thanks to Mr. Kramer, he's put that throughout the city, which is really cool. I think it'll benefit us all there. Rifle optics and lights, we're just waiting on a few optics to come in, but every patrol rifle now has rifle optics for better aim, better shooting, and lights for them for safety precaution. Tazinga was Mr. Kramer's idea. It's an evaluation system that he brought to the department heads. We all thought it was a great thing. So we're implementing that now throughout the city so we can eval our guys. So instead of the old ways of doing it, there really wasn't a lot of communication per se. So now if I put in something for you, Ms. Sudkamp, you're going to see it right away if I put a negative comment or a positive, and you can give feedback. So it's going to help with employees' feedback through the years. Soma software is for Becky. We were trying to come up with some way to keep stats for a social worker. So we combined with Alexandria Police Department and Soma software, or some of the people that are involved in Soma were in our past CAD. They helped us create a social worker software that Alexandria and us use, and then any future ones in the future can all sign on, and they can all help each other. And then improving our communication on social media. We've been really pushing our sergeants and everybody to put that update out there. Turkey Foot Road was shut down the other day, just to try to help out and get more communication there. So with that, you see that we have not just stated we want to do this, we've done that. So with the earlier community anti-crime team, and this is where planning, when I said you can't plan for everything, Officer Auten came to us in May with the presentation of doing a anti-crime team undercover exclusively in the city of Erlanger. We have Officer Wojcik on the strike force, but they really deal in certain drug areas, bigger things. So even though Officer Wojcik was really taking care of a lot of small complaints for us and following up through them and doing a great job, their job is a bigger picture. So Officer Alton made a presentation to the staff. It was outstanding. So the staff looked at it and said, you know what, we got to try this. We got to try this. So we went through a process. We came out with 2 officers, Officer Auten and Officer Lyle. Both are in the room. I don't want to put them on camera too much, hide them. No, seriously. So with, so they've been in operation since July 1st. The month of July was kind of partial because they were with Covington's D team. They were with Strike Force, learning investigation techniques, working search warrants, and getting a real feel for how they should proceed. They used the Commonwealth Attorney and county attorneys. They went down there, got educated on what they expect, how they want it to be done, so that when they bring cases forward, we did them right. And we weren't messing things up. So really this is, all these stats I'm going to show you real quick, is 2 months, 2.5 months. In that short period of time, they've opened 29 new investigations initiated by them. Since the start of the team, 30 citations were written, 11 criminal reports. This is one of the handguns we took off a suspect, or they took off suspect, I should say. You can go share. ECAT's already written and served 2 search warrants, currently working on 2 more. 2 deadly weapons have been taken off the street, some brass knuckles here. Some of their investigations have ranged from fugitive, non-compliant sex offenders, child predator, enticement, violent and dangerous drug dealers, and apprehension of warrant suspects for robbery, first-degree arson. And they've taken a lot of complaints from you all, who've gotten them from the citizens. And we try to get back to each other, and a couple of your all's complaints have resulted in arrests and ongoing investigations. So they're taking it to the next level. Sherry. So with all what they're doing, I feel that this is a success for our community. They're putting a dent in some drug problems we're having, some little areas. So with that, my choices, I went down 5 officers from Crescent Springs to even out things. Now I took 2 more out and put them in this unit. And with the success of this unit, I want to keep it. So I would like to keep that, because the problem is when we have things that come up, like Officer Harkey just got deployed for a year. He's leaving. We've had another officer out for about 6 weeks now. Not really sure when they're coming back, and we got 2 others that are on the injury list. If I lose them, I got to bring them back. So we lose all that momentum and things that we were benefiting as a city. And with our future growth, Sun Behavioral is opening more, and we have started dropping off patients directly there. The police department is now personally transporting our mental health subjects there. That allows two squads stay in service for emergency runs there. With the transition treatment center coming, we see that as being probably an uptick in calls, and it's on the extreme far side of the east part of town. Showcase property, we know that's getting big. It's going to bring more traffic and things to us. We have Interstate 75, 275. So we're never at a loss for wrecks, right, or fatalities out there. And then, like I said, we're not done with our community stuff. Citizens Police Academy, we have gotten a lot of interest from our Coffee of the Cop. And as long as we get enough, we plan on starting one in end of January. And then Officer Abney and our SROs are working on a junior police academy for high school students. So when I ask that and say, I'm looking for 2 officers, what I'm looking for, I'm not asking because I have a revolving door and I can't keep people and I need to get them. We've hired 31 officers since 2012 and 1 social worker. 31 of the 32 still work at this department. And I contribute that to our hiring process because we have certain people we want and we have an idea of who will fit here. But the other one is you guys taking care of our employees, benefits, salary, things of that nature. So we have proven, that what we're doing is working. We're not losing people. They're staying, and it's that's a pretty big slide to me. 31 out of 30, and the one that left, we really wanted to leave. So,
Is that the guy sitting next to me?
Oh no, how'd that one? Numbers. So what we're asking is to have an additional 2 officers added to our roster so that we can keep the anti-crime team fully functional. I think we're getting great benefits from it. We're going to have future growth, that we're going to have more calls. So that's where we're at, and I'm open for questions. Yes.
I have no questions. I just say yes. That's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're not necessarily voting tonight, but it does sound like the straw poll from council would be in favor of what you're proposing.
And that's, really what I'm asking tonight is, can we go ahead and start the process? Because it's going to take us about 6 weeks, 2 months, even if we hire a lateral. So it's a long process for us.
I know this is my committee and I'm a little biased, but you guys just kick butt.
Thanks.
You really do. And I just love and respect every one of you.
Well, thank you. And we appreciate all your support, and the 2 guys back here are really making a difference in your communities. They are. That's all I have.
Ultimately, you are the police chief. You are responsible for the department. You are responsible for your budget. So it's your call.
Well, we would like 2.
All right?
Yes.
I just want to add my 2 cents worth. I have heard so many comments from citizens about how professional our department is, our police department, and how kind and assisting they are. I mean, words just can't, say enough thanks to all that you do for us. And we really appreciate it, and I really like the idea of the 2-man, whatever you call them, because we really need that.
Whatever you call them.
Whatever we call you.
You're undercover, whatever we call.
But I mean, that's a tremendous service, and I think it's very needed in Erlanger. And as we saw from the heroin convocation that we had here, there's a lot of drug problems, and this is what we need to solve them, So I appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And you're right. We get compliments. The guys get complimented. I had just the other day, a friend of mine called me, and I was like, what's he want? And he's like, hey, I just want to tell you I was down at McDonald's talking to one of your officers, and he was awesome. So I get them all the time, and they are good. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, then next we've got on the list the SCBA bid results.
Assistant Chief Dave McQuarrie will be presenting on that.
Thank you.
Before Dave starts, I have something to say.
Uh-oh.
It's all good. Last Thursday, I had a very, very serious situation. Wasn't mental this time. And Erlanger Fire and EMS came to my rescue, and I was dying, literally. Sorry, I get a little emotional about it, because it was on my 50th wedding anniversary, and I thought I was going to celebrate with my husband, who's already up there. But there were two people that cared for me in the squad. There were many people there. It seemed like everybody from Erlanger came to my house, and it was during, I didn't realize this at the time, I was so sick, but it was during school hours. They had a fire department, a life squad, police vehicles, and all these moms and dads trying to get their kids to and from school, and they were directing traffic, and I just thank you all from the bottom of my heart. And there was a gentleman that was the paramedic in the back of the squad with me. His name was Brian Brownfield. I never met the fella, but he's worked for you, what, a year and a half, 2 years? I fell in love with him immediately. I was terrified. And he made me so comfortable. And the fire department calls him Brown Bear. So I took a brown bear to the fire department today to put in his bed to protect him. And I thank you all so very much for who you are every day.
Well, thank you, Patty. I'll be honest with you, one of the things that Mr. Kramer just sat in some interviews with us, we try to hire guys that, we have a couple questions in there that we're really trying to pull some things out of them. And, when they answer that they have empathy for people and compassion, that's one of the biggest things that we look for. So whether they're the best paramedic in the world or not, it doesn't necessarily matter to us. We can train them to do that, but they have to have that to begin with. So thank you. Yeah, he's a good guy, that's for sure. All right. So to get into this, essentially we opened some bids for some self-contained breathing apparatus. First off, you guys were notified that we received the grant from the Department of Homeland Security for $171,000 for new SCBA. Of that, that's the total project cost. Of that, our cost to the city is $81.43. Just a little bit of background on that. We've been applying for these federal funds since 2003, and with this grant, that put us just over $1.4 million in federal funds that we've been able to get for equipment and people. So they've been a godsend. Without some of that money, we, over the years, especially some of those short years, we probably would have been going with dilapidated equipment. So we can move on. So what this project is going to do, self-contained breathing apparatus, we put a picture up there for you. Some people don't know. Those are just the air packs that we use. It's going to replace some units that are 10 years old now. They're going to provide some updated technology to our firemen in the trucks. A couple of big things that we'll do is it will connect via Bluetooth to their portable radios. If you've ever heard, watched YouTube videos or anything, you hear firemen talking through their mask. It's very difficult to understand. This new technology will actually, you'll be able to hear just like you can hear me right now. So it's a huge improvement. And then a picture down here on the right, we're actually, with this proposal, we're going to be able to have an integrated thermal imaging camera on every SCBA. Right now, we only have, a couple on the trucks that only a couple people can use at a time because they're very expensive, but they have these integrated into the SCBAs. So that's a huge one for us.
There's like a camera on the mask?
It's actually going to kind of hang right here.
Oh,
it's not
okay.
going to be in the mask. It makes
Okay.
the mask a lot cheaper.
Wow, that's cool.
So, and then over time, one of the things that we wanted to do is actually get some guys trained in-house that can work on them. So
just like anything else, just like your car, things break down over time. So having people trained to be technicians and be able to tear those down, rebuild them, get them fixed, and test them back up is going to save us a lot of money in the end. So, move on. So with that being said, we received 2 bids. We had a committee of guys led by Lieutenant Gotzi. They had already had a couple vendors in, tested the packs, got a bunch of feedback from a lot of the people in the department, and had really already made their decision on what they wanted to go with. So 2 big vendors that we have in the area, 911 Fleet, they sell the Scott Air Pack, and Vocapol Fire Equipment, they sell the MSA. You can see just on their base bids there, the MSA packs were about $20,000 cheaper. That's really what allowed us to get to the point where we could get the integrated thermal imaging cameras. If we were to go with the Scott bid, we would not have the money left over to do that. So if you remember the first slide, we had the AFG where the total project was $171,004. Dealing with the federal government for so many years, they do not want us to give even a penny back. So even though that bid came in at 133, we need to spend the whole 171. So that's what's allowing us to get the options. So the paper that you guys have in front of you, basically it lists our base bid and then a bunch of options that gets us to 171,808. So just a little bit above that federal amount. So that will satisfy all the requirements of the AFG. So, any questions?
Doesn't look like it. Did a good job.
Thanks. This was an easy one. This wasn't our money. This is the federal money. So, but part of it, we still have to go through our normal bid process. So that's why we sent it out to bid. As Mr. Kramer mentioned in our last meeting, we did have $175,000 set aside in the budget that will actually go back to general fund. So you're welcome.
Thank you.
And for the other bid that's on the list tonight, Sherry had to smash all of our dreams today and said that we have to send that back out to bid. There were just a couple errors on their bids. It was a company that put in that is not familiar with public bids and that process. They do mostly private stuff. They put all the big monitors in, like the KFC Yum Center, that kind of stuff. So we'll get with them and get it back out to bid, and we'll have it ready by November 20th.
Okay, thank you. All right, there are no other items on the agenda, but I did want to mention a couple of things really quickly. To Mr. Kramer and to Mr. Hahn, I did receive the bridge report from the Transportation Cabinet. I'll hand it on to you to share. And Mr. Bodie, I do have the signed ACH processing agreement, so don't leave here without that. And then also, I wanted to see if Mr. Cahill would be willing to talk briefly about one of the OKI grants that we've applied for.
So we actually had a meeting on October 11th for the Board of Directors for OKI, and I'm glad to announce that OKI approved the Kentucky Transportation Alternatives Grant. We got approved for $188,475. There's a match to that. However, that will be for the Brightleaf Narrows Road from Turkeyfoot Road to Thorntree. This has been a long time coming. We need people to be safe on that road when they're walking, and we finally got the money to do that. We will have to have some discussions because this will be distributed in 2020, so we're going to have some discussions on some of the funding that we may be able to do ahead of time to get this started with minimal cost to the city. So I'm real excited about this. This has been one of my goals since I've got on council, and I can say it's actually going to be done. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. All right. And that's all I had. If there's nothing else, then I'll ask for a motion that we adjourn. Motion by Mr. Nicely, second by Mrs. Kyle. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, meeting adjourned.